So Nick Hammond is Leeds United's new temporary football advisor, and we're here to discuss a little bit on what he can bring to Leeds United and what to expect. So he's provided consultancy before for Celtic and Newcastle in a short-term window. Newcastle, the most recent, where he has brought in Bruno Guimaraes, Nick Pope, Chris Wood, and Kieran Trippier, who were the standout names. Now, what I find really interesting about this consultancy window that Nick Hammond has provided and provided very recently for Newcastle is that Newcastle had new owners. We all know that they were taken over in pretty much the new year. And the new owners came in and similarly to Leeds, they were looking at a short-term, effective and efficient fix. They were looking for someone to come in and solve a short-term problem, which was the transfer window. Newcastle had to appoint a sporting director. They had to appoint a CEO. But we all know when you are building the foundations of a really good side and you're building a framework and a structure, that takes time. We've seen the links to Stuart Webber this week. We've seen the links to Kieran Scott prior. And I think what this shows you about the San Francisco 49ers is that they are very, very willing to dip into the short-term market because they want to get the long-term strategy absolutely bang on. And the similarities with Newcastle is really, really, it's really, really apparent. And obviously they're on a completely different trajectory when it comes to financial status. But it's all about building the club, building the project, similarly to what the 49ers will be trying to do with Leeds. Now, Nick Hammond is a specialist at navigating through a January transfer window. As I've mentioned before, he went in at Newcastle in January 2022, very recently, where Steve Nixon was head of recruitment. Eddie Howe had just come in as manager and the sporting director was vacant. So it was all very, very new at Newcastle at this moment in time. Now, the interesting thing about this is he's not come in as a sporting director. And this was similar at Newcastle. He's come in as a football advisor. A football advisor is essentially someone who checks, who organises checks, balances, looks at the financial aspects of what's going on with new deals, players coming in, players going out, and gives an opinion to the owner as well. And the advisor role that Hammond had at Newcastle, he was working very, very closely with Eddie Howe, who knew exactly what he wanted, the players, the attributes that he wanted, and Hammond's was someone who went to almost like the middleman who went to the owners and said, look, this is what we need, this is how we can do it financially, this is what we need from you in terms of investment in the squad. So I think it's a very smart decision by Leeds United. It seems a little bit too smart by Leeds United at this moment in time because we're not used to this, but it's great to see. And yeah, the football advisor role is something that's a little bit new in comparison to the sporting director, but it just shows that this is a bit of a short-term fix, a little bit of a gap filler, and Nick Hammond has got experience being a gap filler at Celtic and Newcastle where he did an absolutely remarkable job, and that January window was so huge for Newcastle. And I think some quotes, the certain quote that I saw from Nick Hammond, after his time at Newcastle, was that he thoroughly enjoyed it. He knew that it would be a pressurised situation. He knew it was a massive club. He knew the owners weren't as sure on the Premier League as he was, as sure on recruitment in the domestic league as he was. And he absolutely thrived on that role. And I think that's absolutely pivotal for Leeds United right now. It's someone who has worked at big clubs before and who can take on that burden of looking at the aspects of the financial side, communicating with the owners, communicating with different groups as well. Newcastle are comprised of 3 groups who are part of the ownership structure. We know with the San Francisco 49ers that it is an enterprises a structure and makeup, and the enterprises makeup means that, as we all know, there are 11 core investors. So if Nick Hammond is the centerpiece of all those 11 investors, then that's going to be a good facing man that the investors can look at and discuss. And alongside Angus Kinnear, that seems like we've actually got another face at Leeds United who's worked in the game and can give advice to the owners on where to go and how to go about it. Guys, so if you've enjoyed this video, we'll have more videos throughout the day, but Nick Hammond is Leeds United's new financial advisor. I hope this has helped you to understand a little bit on what his role would be at Leeds United. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Check the video out from this morning. You already have a rumour mill. Guys, have a good one, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.